Hello, everyone. Welcome to Needville United Methodist Church YouTube channel. This is our weekly Bible study. I apologize for there not being a weekly Bible study last week. I had some computer technical difficulties with the recordings and with my camera, and it was a truckload of problems, but it's all fixed now. And so we're going to continue with our Bible study this week and finish out the Psalms that we've been doing over the past number of weeks. We're going to end with the 139th Psalm. But before we get into that, I do want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on the video. And one final announcement that I continue to make as often as possible. On the 24th, this upcoming Monday at 7 o'clock in the evening in the sanctuary is our church conference meeting. Please, if you are a member of this church, that means that you have professed Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and joined the membership of the church by standing up in front and taking the vows of membership, right, to uphold the church, your prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness, that kind of thing. If you have done that, you are a member of this church. If you are a full member of this church, I implore you to be at church conference meeting, as we will be discussing the future of our congregation, whether or not we as a congregation are going to stay within the United Methodist Church or to disaffiliate and leave the United Methodist Church. If you're a member of this church, you should have been getting, you should have gotten a letter from me saying all of this and even some more detail about what this meeting is all about. Hopefully you got that, and it's not sitting in the Houston post office distribution center somewhere. But if you didn't get the letter and you think you are a member of the church, please call the church office and make sure and see if you are on our rolls. If you are, then I want you to be here. I want you to have voice. I want you to have vote on this very important issue and topic. If you're not 100% certain what I'm talking about and would like to know more about what's going on, not only within our local congregation, but within the United Methodist Church as a whole, I encourage you, down in the description, you will find links to the videos that I've posted for us here in Needville. They're also on our Needville channel. You can go and watch the videos there. And in the description, you will find the link to the Texas Annual Conference's website, where the Future Discernment Task Force has put together an entire page dedicated to this issue. And it has a lot of great information as well as videos that you can watch and learn about what's going on in our church and in our denomination. So I encourage you to pick those up and take care and take heed of what's in there. That being said, let's dive into our final psalm for today, and that is the 139th Psalm. Now, as with all the other Bible study lessons during this series, I encourage you, go read all of the verses in the psalm. It's a beautiful psalm. Everything, all the verses are wonderfully made. The entire psalm is an amazing psalm to read through. But of course, for Bible studies, we're trying to make them, 10 to 15 minutes long. I can't go over the full thing in that time frame. But what I do want us to focus on is the second verse, because of course Psalms are songs, as they are, and that's verses 7 through 12. So I'm going to actually read these verses for you, because I think that they are very powerful, especially with the fact that in just a few short days, we will be making a choice on something that is monumental in the life of our congregation. And so I'm going to start with verse 7. I'm reading from the NRSV Bible. That's the typical translation that I tend to read from. So if you're using your Bible, it might sound slightly different if you're using a different version of the scriptures. But this is the NRSV version, verses 7 through 12. Says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, Even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. Now, I love this passage from the psalmist because the psalmist is trying to explain to us how broad God's presence really is, how incredible God really is. And I have to say, every time I read this passage, the first thing that pops into my head is the story of Jonah, right? We remember the story of Jonah. I mean, we remember the whale, we remember being swallowed and all that kind of stuff. But if you remember correctly, at the very beginning of the story, Jonah gets called by God and says, go over here, right? Go to Nineveh. And what does he do? He immediately says, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk to those people. I don't want to do anything. I want to stay right here. And before he even gets on the boat, he says the fact that God's presence is everywhere, but he still flees. He gets on the boat, takes the boat. After a little while, the seas become choppy. The storm comes up. Everything's going wrong. The sailors, the captain, they're all scared. They all think that they're going to die. And finally, Jonah gets up and is like, it's me. It's my fault. I'm running from God. And yeah, I'm running from a God that can literally be everywhere and anywhere at any given moment. I'm running from a God who is always present, who is all powerful, who is incredibly, is always there and watching me and everything else. It's just, I always find it funny because Jonah describes God, describes this being that you couldn't flee from, and yet he still tries to flee. He does he does his best job as he could to try and flee from the presence of God. But he knew that wasn't going to work, but he tried it anyway. And the psalmist says the same thing here, right? Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? How many of us have had that have had that feeling before? Of course, we've all felt that feeling where we feel isolated, where we feel like, we did something wrong and we built that barrier, or that maybe, and in some instances we feel that God's the one that built that barrier, right? And he left us. It's not the case, but we feel it that way sometimes, right? But then there's other times in our lives where, like, we don't want God to see this. Like, I want to do this, whatever this might be. I want to do this. I want to be a part of this. I want to be at this event. I want to do this thing, but I don't want God to see because I'm ashamed of it. Like, I want to do it, but I don't want God to see it. And so that's what the psalmist is saying. It's like, he's like, okay, there's sometimes where I can't go anywhere from your spirit, even though I try, even though I feel like I've gone too far, I've sinned too badly, I've made too many mistakes, that kind of thing. He says, okay, God's always present there. But then sometimes it's the fact of, I just don't want God's presence here because I don't want him to see what I'm about to do. I don't want him to see, because I want to do this thing and I know that he's not going to approve of it. And the psalmist is sitting there going, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you desire. It doesn't matter any of that, because God's presence is always there. He's always around. His presence is always with you. And then he goes into the same thing, right? He goes in heaven, Sheol, which is saying it's hell is not a very good description. The ancient Jewish people believed that there was reality, like where we are, right? The physical world and the spiritual world. Sheol was simply the idea that you were now in the spiritual realm. And so sometimes we do depict it as hell. But essentially it's the afterlife, right? That's what it is. It's after our mortal lives here on earth. It's the place of the spirits. And he says, look, I can go into deep heaven, which is where you reside, and you're going to be there. I can be here on earth, which is in the middle of everything, and you're going to be there because you're going to be in, and I can go to Sheol and you'll be there too. If you're going to be there in Sheol and you're going to be there in heaven, then you're going to be there everywhere. Your presence is always there. And that's what this whole verse is all about. The fact of it, there's nowhere we can go. We can try to hide. We can try to run. We can try to cloak ourselves in darkness. We can try to do all of these things. And yet, no matter where we go, God's presence will always be with us. And as I said, as I look towards the 24th, and trust me, I'm getting as stressed out as any of y'all are with everything that's going on, with thoughts of what happens if, what happens if, what happens if. And this psalm helps to remind me and calm me that no matter what happens, God's presence is with us. God will be there with us. His spirit will be felt in that sanctuary at 7:00. His spirit will be felt the following Sunday when things are drastically different. Regardless if we decide to disaffiliate or not, it's going to make a big difference in our congregation. Now, maybe you're watching this video and you're not a member of this church and you're a member of a different church, another Methodist church, perhaps. Maybe you're going through the same thing. Maybe your church conference isn't on the 24th, but it's, coming up, or it's already happened, or whatever the case may be. And for all of you that are listening to this, I want you to hear the message of the Psalm this morning or today, whenever you're watching this. And that is, God's presence is always with you. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you can run. There's no mistake you can make. There's no word you can say. There's nothing that you can do about the fact that God's presence is always with you. Take that as comfort, because he could be anywhere and he chooses to be with you. He loves you that much. He desires a relationship with you that much that he wants to make sure that he will always be one step away from you. His presence is always with you. And that's what I've got today. I need you to know that God's with you. Use the description down below to go and understand what's going on in our denomination if you don't understand it as well enough right now. I hope if you're a member of our congregation, I will get to see you on Monday, the 24th, for our church conference. Subscribe, like the video, and use the comment section below to let me know maybe what the next Bible study you'd like to see me do is. As I said, today marks the end of our Psalms, so we're going to be looking at doing something different next week. But ultimately, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and I pray that everything goes well for you. May God bless you.